समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
Did you know that the Delhi police used face profiling during the Jantar Mantar protests? Apparently, they brought in a vehicle, they had cameras that scanned the crowd, they took shots of the protesters, and then they matched them with their files, presumably. And they've announced that many of the people there were actually criminals in the sense that they'd been convicted of some crime or maybe they'd been charged with some crime. I mean, that's interesting and it shows you the Delhi police are getting fairly high tech. Not that law enforcement in India has been lagging in technology. We all know about the intelligence agencies and the use of Pegasus. But the Delhi police have never been seen in that light. Now, there are many, many issues that come up with this, those of privacy, those of what a criminal is, those of if you're just charged with a crime, are you a criminal? Plus, why do this in the Jantar Mantar protests alone? Do you do this at BJP rallies? Where does it stop? And if you're looking for people who've been charged with a crime, why go to a protest site? Why not stand outside a legislature, outside parliament, looking for people or profiling people who've been charged with crimes? You'll find enough people there, I'm pretty sure. But let's not get into the ethical dimensions of this because that's not my subject for today. My subject for today is the cops and high tech. It's good, I think, that the cops are getting more high tech, but I have something I need to say to them. And listen, guys, I'm very, very pleased that you know how to use face profiling. But there's one invention I think that's passed unnoticed. Let me tell you what it is. I don't know if you've seen one. This is called a camera phone. And the camera phone is actually interesting because it allows people to take photographs or videos of you on the spot and then upload them to the internet, to YouTube within seconds. Why is this important? Well, because the camera phone records what you guys are doing. And somehow you don't seem to realize that this happens all the time or that most people now have camera phones. So if you go into a rally and while your high tech guys are face profiling, you take out the lathis and you beat up women, you look for children to assault. When a guy is slumped on the ground, 8 of you come with lathis and hit him. If that's the kind of stuff you intend to do, then maybe you should be careful and aware that there are camera phones. Somebody will take videos of you doing this, and those will be posted on the internet, and millions of people will see them. I don't think the Delhi police have worked this out because that's not part of their MO. The brutality, actually, which we saw in action and on these camera phone videos, is something they do as a matter of course. It's something we don't realize, we in the middle classes, when we read newspaper headlines or articles, and when it says police clashed with demonstrators or police broke up a protest. How do you think they do it? They don't do it with face profiling or technology. They do it with lathis. They do it with truncheons. They do this by beating people up, by ganging up on them. That's how they've always functioned. No matter how much technology you give them, they're not going to stop that. Unfortunately for them, we now have a record. If you look at the videos that came out of the Jantar Mantar protests, it's frightening. The brutality, I think, will horrify everyone. What's more frightening now, in retrospect, is that we in the middle class, the educated middle class so called, have more or less ignored this. And we've ignored this because the Delhi police are quite clever. Well, yeah, why just the Delhi police? All police forces are quite clever. They have one law for the middle class, one law for the rich, and another for the poor, for the homeless, for minorities. For the poor minorities, people like that, they will use any kind of violence, they will use any kind of brutality and nobody will say anything to them, and they think it's fine. We in the middle class, because we don't actually see videos, think it's fine too. But this time it was very different because the protests were largely led by middle class people. And middle class folks looked at these videos and they saw what could have been their daughters, their sons, their younger sisters, their younger brothers getting the hell kicked out of them by uniformed and armed policemen. And they said, oh my God, this is terrible police brutality. So, two mistakes. One, usually don't pick on the middle class. And two, hey guys, the camera phones, right? Now, everywhere you go, everything you do, somebody is going to post a video. So you're under the kind of supervision you've never had all your lives. You might think that you're being supervised by your senior officers, but we know you're not. We know that a senior officer went up to a woman and slapped her in the face while the phone cameras were rolling. So that's pretty much the expected standard of behavior from the police. Coming back to the protests and coming back to the violence, I don't know if you realize the extent to which this violence was, in many ways, the violence by the police, not by protesters who were largely peaceful, how much the violence was unpredicted and how much it was unprecedented. The police forces used pellet guns against unarmed protesters. People were injured. One person may have been blinded in one eye as a consequence. Now, pellet guns are dangerous. The police use them in Kashmir or Manipur where they can claim it's a disturbed area. But as far as I know, they have never been used in the center of Delhi against unarmed protesters. We owe the Hindu and Vijeta Singh, the journalist, the credit for revealing that sequence of events because when people turned up with pellet injuries and went to hospitals, the Delhi police lied. They issued a statement denying that any pellet guns were used. Technically, I think they thought they had a way out because the pellet guns were used by the Rapid Action Force, which was also there, which is a paramilitary organization, and not by the police who were just busy beating up people, which is their stand. But they were able to claim that we don't know if some other force used pellet guns. Unfortunately for them, and thanks to the Hindu, we know that the Rapid Action Force was also clever. It made sure that a DCP rank officer of the Delhi police authorized whatever weapons they were using. There are written instructions to this effect. So for the Delhi police now to say blandly that no pellet guns were used, I mean, tell that to the guy who's probably lost an eye. Tell that to the kids who had pellets in their faces. It's just shocking in some ways how they can lie so blatantly in front of people. But there's more. I mean, the claim of the police is that there was such terrible situation that they had no alternative but to use violence. Really? Well, just look at mainstream media. Forget for a moment about camera phones and all of that. Just look at the shots on mainstream media and you'll see what we're talking about. Because think back to the protests and ask yourself, when did it change? When did it stop becoming just one small student movement or protest movement? And when did it capture the national imagination? The turning point was not when Wang Chuk called a fast to ask for the removal of Dharmendra Pradhan, or even when the protest was launched. The turning point was when violence entered the picture, when these videos were posted. And I don't know if you've seen the videos. You've probably seen the mainstream media stuff. You've seen Wang Chuk being abducted forcibly to break his fast, which we now know he did. You've seen shots of Rahul Gandhi, blood streaming from his nose, being bodily lifted by several policemen and taken into custody. You've seen stuff like that on mainstream media. But just look at the videos. It's actually really shocking. The officer who slaps a woman and doesn't seem to regret it at all. In fact, the Delhi police have defended him. Not only is there no action, they actually appear to be on his side. The guys with lathis who not only beat women, use the lathis between the legs and thighs of women. People who abused of little children, who beat the hell out of them. People who had clubs with nails on the outside who assaulted the protesters. And bizarrely, lots and lots of plainclothes people who looked like complete thugs who had no identification on them, but who operated along with the police. Now, there are two possibilities. One is the police or somebody like that hired thugs to come and do the dirty work. The other is that they were policemen. They were just in plain clothes, which is in its own way even more frightening, because what it means is take away their uniforms, and these guys are thugs. They look like it once you take away the uniforms. It's not convincing for the police to say that they had no alternative. The argument on Rahul Gandhi is that, they were protesting near the PM's house, and that's terrible. It was a security threat. Well, first of all, this is not the first time there have been protests in that area. During the Nirbhaya agitation, not only did people protest there, they protested at 10 Janpath. And far from being accused of trying to assassinate Sonia Gandhi or whatever, some protesters were even called into 10 Janpath to meet Sonia Gandhi and explain how they felt. Similarly, the protesters outside of Racecourse Road didn't have the hell beaten out of them. So none of this is actually valid. And to claim that there were bans, they were marching to Parliament and that is banned. Yeah, who banned it? The police did. Nobody else did. There's no other reason to do that. Who said that this is high security to sit near the Prime Minister's house? Well, first of all, you didn't say it for another Prime Minister, and you're saying it now, but on what basis? Who makes these security regulations? You guys do. Only now that the protest movement is over, at least this phase is over, are we learning what happened? The protesters had said for a long time that the police were sending what they call, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the right, agents provocateurs into the rally. They're trying to create problems, they're trying to plant things, they're trying to cause fights. And I wondered about that. But then there was a truck parked there which had stones, which the police suggested had been brought by the protesters. News Laundry actually checked on the truck, followed its origins. It was a truck that had been seized a few days before by the Delhi police. And the Delhi police presumably allowed it to come there near the rally. And in the interim, it was filled with stones. The Delhi police, of course, have denied this, like they've denied everything else. But you have to ask yourselves, if a truck has been seized by the police and is in the custody of the police, how does it turn up at the site? Why is it packed with stones? There are many, many such reasons. The police are now going in all directions. They're blaming the Rapid Action Force. They're saying that they've been slandered. They're saying the protesters left them with no choice. But the truth is, the police cracked down on them, on the protesters, not because they love brutality, which they probably do, but because those were the instructions they were given. At that time, the policy of the government of India was to hold firm, to crush the agitation, not to give in to a single demand. There was no question of Pradhan resigning, no question of taking the protesters seriously. Only after the brutality, after the videos, did they realize the movement was now out of control and they had to do something. And then they changed strategy. They started talks. They made Pradhan resign. But during that crackdown phase, the cops were told to really go for it, to really try and destroy the demonstration, to try and hurt the protesters, to try and scare them away. And such is the nature of the police in India that if you don't listen to your political masters, you get transferred. Nobody even asks about you once you're transferred. A new guy is put in and he does what they want. I mean, it's not a coincidence, I think, that the Delhi police commissioner was transferred a few days before the violence. A new guy came in and the violence increased. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. But that is the way in which protests are handled. That is the way in which the police operate. And that's the way in which the government functions. If it needs to do something, it will use any of the agencies it has at its disposal. And woe betide anybody who's caught in that violence. Will that change? I don't know. Some people think that the response to these protests has been so enormous that they will rethink things. Apparently, the police are having crisis meetings. But basically, I mean, you can't crush aspirations of people with violence. You can't do it the way you used to with lots and lots of brutality because now there is a record of everything you're doing. I think the government must realize that. I think the police need to realize that. What happens next? I don't know. One theory is that the government will wait for things to quieten down and then will start calling the protesters and taking its revenge. I don't know if that's true, but even if it is, it won't work. India is changing. It isn't just the technology that's changed, it's the mood of the people that's changed. And I think the government needs to realize.